right, welcome to the podcast, Ambrus. How's things?
Well, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, things are good. Pretty chill. Just came back from my morning little hike, so thanks for pushing the starting time back an hour. And yeah, I like to do that some mornings, and it's a nice little 4-mile kind of ish hike in the morning. It gets me a little bit gets the steps in the day before I hit the studio.
Interesting. I find I need to start. Well, actually, before we get into it, maybe you could just introduce yourself a little bit and tell people who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I've been in, I guess, music production and this whole kind of music thing, for long enough so that it's kind of almost difficult to identify what it has been. There's been so many things along the 30 odd years of music production. Started back in the 90s or something, and kind of gone through the whole playing bands and everything, and most recently and record labels and weekly club nights and touring a ton everywhere, and I guess most recently it's been solidifying for me that really what I'm most interested in is the intersection of music production and education. Education has been with me for as long as, I guess, right when I started playing the drums, I started almost right that moment, a couple of years after teaching it as well. So teaching has been with me for 30 years as well. And so it's just been kind of more, I think, honing in and closing in on that kind of, I guess, an intersection of learning a lot, because I'm kind of always interested in shit and want to kind of look things up and everything. I'm kind of drawn to learning or finding things out, and that brings me to education. And the music is a way to make sense of who I am, I guess. Any type of art for me is a little bit of a self-discovery type of thing. I live in Los Angeles, Hollywood. Originally, I'm from or Los Angeles, California. Originally, I'm from Hungary, Budapest, and I lived here 10 years. Worked up until very recently at the Los Angeles Film School as the program manager for the music production program. I was a trip for 8 years, and that's kind of about it.
Nice. Yeah, what is it that you think you like so much about the intersection of the education on the music side of things? Because I feel the same way, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. What is it that you find so interesting about that side of things?
That's a really good question. There's, like I said, I think even if there were no music in part of my life, I'm pretty sure I would be doing something to do. At least part of my time would be focusing on education, because, like I said, it's one of those things that when you're a learner, then you kind of, it's almost difficult to avoid or to kind of get away from teaching at some point as well. If you're interested in, I remember when I went to university, and I went to the University of West London and did music and multimedia technology. Up until that point, I hated school, and I went to that school, and I was like, oh my God, school is amazing. This is and not because as a student necessarily, but I'm so this is a way that things can be taught. I thought school was shit. I thought it was boring. And then it just kind of gave me a love for teaching, or I guess for the full circle of education. And the other thing is, I feel a lot of times I think there's a need for, obviously, for education that makes sense. I think there's a lot of emphasis on tools and techniques and shit, and that's great, I think, but I don't think that is going to necessarily make you a good or an artist. If you know how to use Microsoft Word, it doesn't make you an author with an interesting story to write, And so I think I like to try to at least, bring in some sort of that sort of approach where it's more about who you are as a creator rather than the tools that you use. And I think there's a bit of a lack of that here and there. And I enjoy coming in and to kind of drive the point, I guess. Now I'm kind of freestyling this, but I guess to to drive it to a kind of like a conclusion in my head, is kind of like, are you familiar with the Ikigai concept?
I've
like
heard
this
of
Japanese.
It, but explain it to me, because I forget.
It's simple. It's basically, it's like if you divide your if you create 4 areas of principles. One is, what is something that you really love doing, or what are the things that you really love doing? That's one. And then kind of put in there whatever it is. I like to be working by myself, or I like to, or not even, it doesn't have to even be work, just what is something you love? Now, what is something, another category, was something that you're very good at. Might not be the same as what you love doing, obviously. And then what is something that people would pay you money to do? And then finally, what is something that the world kind of needs? So it isn't something, so you might be very talented at, I don't know, being a scam artist or something, but do we need that? So it's like, what is something that is actually going to help and the world make the world a bit better place, but like benefit humankind in a way or something. And so I guess education is a really nice intersection there for me. It's something that I love doing. I really enjoy teaching, especially in group settings. I love like teaching like 20 people or more, because there's typically good dynamic when it around at least a minimum of 20. And then I think I'm pretty good at it. Here and there, I have become good at it over the 30 years. I wasn't always that. I was probably terrible. Many crashes along the way here, but, and you get the idea. Is basically like, yeah, it's something that can be maybe not lucrative, but financially can be transactional, so that you can be paid for it, and it's something that I think the world kind of needs.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Yeah, I agree with you on like having knowledge versus skill. Like, all professional athletes or whatever have like a coach who like couldn't do what that athlete does, but they like know how all of the inner shit works for the thing. Or like professional race drivers, right? Like they might not understand how the car works completely, but they can drive it really well. Yeah, I think there's a big difference between being able to teach music really well and then being really good at music. I feel like that's definitely a separate thing. I know a lot of people who know like fucking everything there is to know, it seems like, about electronic music, especially like DSP guys and stuff like that, but they're no Skrillex for some reason.
Dude, that's really true.
And vice versa, right? Like Skrillex probably doesn't know how a fur filter works, but he's Skrillex. He can make the sickest music ever.
Right. And I think what you just said kind of reminded me of how much I learned about music production once I started teaching it. It was for you. It's one of those things where, when you're able to communicate the concepts with the clarity that is required in a teaching setting, in an educational setting, that means that you really have to understand. And it's kind of a bit of you have to make sure that you're following people, like you have an audience. And I think I always liked, it's one of the, like when you like to be like to perform on stage or something, and you like that situation of, hey, which is kind of weird, but I'm on stage, look at me, I got something to show you guys. That's kind of very similar, I think, in a classroom setting. Is just a little more, I think it's a little higher stakes for me. You can just, have fun on stage. Doesn't matter how many people there are, I think. For me, at least, it didn't really feel like it mattered too much. You could just have a lot of fun, pull some stupid shapes or do whatever you want, kind of, almost. But then in a classroom setting, it's interesting because it's very challenging. Sometimes, well, actually, every time I found myself in a classroom with like 20 odd people, there's always one person that's like with a pen and a paper and like really keen to write. Like they're like, so what's the takeaway? What's the definition? Like give me the clear answer. And some other people are like the exact opposite. They're like, now let's just have a discussion and whatever. And how do you facilitate those very different kind of approaches? And how do you inspire some people, ideally, like get them a little interested, as well as how do you provide the clarity of the instruction? I love that challenge. But what is it that brings you to education? I never knew that, I think.
So I haven't done too much formal education really. Like my stuff has mostly been online,
Right.
like tutorials, courses, that kind of thing. And my theory behind that is just that like you can hit way more people with information that way. Like when you're teaching a class, maybe you can teach them maybe more deeply and answer the very specific questions that each person has. But I think overall, doing like a tutorial or a course, you can affect, millions of people versus in classes. It's like, I don't think you could in person teach 1 million people in your life. Really, it's too many. It's
a really good point. Yeah.
But really, I just am super interested in how things work. Like once I start getting into something, I just have to know how it works from a practical sense. I'm not really into theory or anything like that.
Right.
If stuff is purely theoretical, I just kind of don't understand why I need to know it. And so I guess I'm really interested in the intersection of like exactly what I need to know in a practical sense to fully understand the things that I need to basically have Ableton feel like it's a third limb, I guess, or sorry, a fifth limb, to where when I want to do, like, my original goal, I think, when I was getting into electronic music is like I would hear all this electronic music and be like, wow, this sounds so crazy. Like how's that sound made, and how did he do that thing, and what is this, and my whole goal was just trying to figure out all those little tricks to like efficiently achieve all of those sounds and whatnot that I was interested in. And then once I got into it more, I was just like, wow, it's just actually really interesting how all this stuff works. And yeah.
I think it's really what I'm trying to say is that you seem to have this inner drive of like you want to find something out. I think I have noticed that it's like if someone asked you, if someone asked you, at what point did you decide that you wanted to go into music production? Well, if someone asks me, I'm always a little not sure how to answer, because the question implies this autonomy that I don't think I ever decided. It was more like once I was hooked, it was just game over.
Well, it's also a gradient, right? Like I don't think you just get to one day and decide. I think it's like something that slowly happens over time until you're just in it.
Yeah, and that as well. 100%. You kind of like get pulled into it, but also I remember when first I played music. It was I wouldn't even call it music. I lied to a friend of mine saying I was a drummer, because he asked like, "Oh, you're a drummer, right?" In high school, and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'm a drummer." Yeah, and then he was like, "Well, I'm a guitar player. Should we just have like a jam session?" I'm like, "Yeah, we should." So I went over. He didn't play the guitar. I didn't know how to play the guitar. I didn't know how to like play the drums whatsoever. I didn't have drums. I just like tapping along on a. So anyway, but that moment I was hooked, because I could not believe it was the weirdest thing. It was like I felt that once we were like playing for whatever we were playing for like 3-4 whatever minutes, I was like, dude, we just had a conversation. This feels like we were communicating, and I could not believe how pure it felt. That it wasn't. I mean, look, it didn't. I couldn't wrap my head around. I think as clearly at the time as I can maybe make sense of it now, but it was whatever it was. It felt like we were having a convo without saying anything, and then it felt like more clean than weird languages and shit. And from that moment on, it was like, this is it. And a lot of people, I think, for that's a very fortunate position to be in, I think, when it's almost like it's decided for you. It was a calling or something, and some people have that, but I think it's a lot of people have a different approach. They are very interested in this, and it's not maybe as a transformational one moment that they're just like struck by that lightning. And I think they need a lot of times, and a lot of us, we all do, ways to be pulled into it. Like, I think that's where this comes from. Like, when did you decide you want to pursue music? Is because a lot of people need that more conscious kind of approach, where they will also probably, these are the people I think that oftentimes will need a lot of continuous motivation to be excited by it, because they might get just bored or burnt out or something.
Yeah, I think that's the other reason I really like learning stuff is because I find it inspiring. Like if I'm ever like uninspired to write music, it's usually a sign that I'm just doing the same things over and over again, and I'm just bored of them. And if I go and just watch a tutorial or something like that and go like, oh, cool, this new contact thing I haven't played with that can do some cool stuff, or like, you know, this cool new type of synthesizer that, you know, Zebra 3's beta or something, or Zebra let the spectral one or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then all of a sudden I start learning about that and have some ideas, and yeah.
Totally. I think when you have that internal drive, that curiosity, that is a super lucky thing. It might not just be to do with luck, though. But I think it's when information is readily available for free, literally, you can, you know what I mean? Like even right now, we could choose to be reading the manual of Ableton's manual or whatever. It's literally there, and every moment you pretty much intentionally choose to not do that, but do something, whatever else it is that you're doing. I think back in when I was like 30 years ago, that it was much more common to have that internal drive of curiosity, because information was not that it was scarce, it was not available. Like we literally spent sometimes years debating in pubs and over beers, like what the release does on a compressor. And because we weren't just like, all right, let's settle this for like once and for all, let's look it up. You know, I remember not knowing the difference between a delay, an echo, and a reverb for like a year. And like, where do I find that out? And so I think when you had that, like, fuck, I need to find this out, that is a really I'm not just necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily say it was healthy, but it gives you this, it drives your curiosity when it's not available. Today, I think it's kind of difficult to come by sometimes, to have that internal drive that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's hard to find questions big enough that you can't just get the answer in a concise way from ChatGPT immediately. And as soon as you get that information, it just sort of like quells your curiosity. And then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I know that. And then you feel satisfied. Whereas, yeah, I agree. Back in the day, it was more of like man, how does this thing work? And then you have to like create your own test cases to like A/B stuff and figure out like what the difference is between things. And yeah, I mean, I find that stuff fun to do still today, actually.
Same.
I want to talk a little bit about the LA Film School thing that you're doing. I don't know anything about that school. Can you tell me about it a bit and what your experience is like there?
Sure.
And...
Yeah, absolutely. It's a career college. It's a for-profit school that offers long-form education for people who want to be a music producer or audio engineer. And it's a film school. I think the name is really misleading because people think that you're going to be doing film music or music for film. Not at all. It's not the main thing there. It's more that it used to be more of a film directing and film, all kinds of what is there, like animation and digital, all kinds of like, into like, it was related to film, but it wasn't music. And then it acquired the Los Angeles Recording School. And so now, under the umbrella of the Los Angeles Film School, you have a music production program as well that teaches modern music production. It's not trying, but it's not trying to teach like music for film or anything. There's the foundation, associate level and bachelor level degrees of both music and audio production. It's both online and both in person. So you get to choose whichever it is that you want to participate in. They have fantastic facilities at the Hollywood location, amazing studios, like crazy big, like SSL duality boards and everything. If someone thinks that that's relevant or important today, that's a question that everyone has to answer for themselves. But yes, it's very, very impressive in terms of their facilities as well.
And what was you said you're a program manager there, so were you like writing curriculums or were you teaching the classes or? So
yeah, I started as an instructor, and because I think it was mainly because previously I had built, I don't know actually if we ever talked about this build, or it came up, that I had built a school in Hungary. It's like it's called the Budapest School of Music Technology, and it's actually is inspired to a large extent by my time at the University of West London. I was there, and people kept asking me like, "How is it so cool?" Because I couldn't shut up about it. And then I was like, "Well, let me just fucking show you." And it's almost like came from that that thing. And anyway, so I built that. It was a really it was actually a really successful little thing. It was a very strong community around it, and it was the timing and it was luck. A lot of things kind of came together, and so I kind of had a fairly somewhat decent understanding of the individual kind of components, how they make sense of this thing called the school. You know, when it comes to like you have admissions, you have like the advisors and all of that, and so after being an instructor for I think about a year or something, I was promoted to like an associate program manager, and then a program manager like less than a year after. So what that is you basically, it's a pretty, it's quite a challenge because it's a very large company with a lot of, it's a kind of intricate organizational structure. So there's like a lot of, how do I say this? A lot of, but the program manager's job is to ensure that the classes are conducted the way they are meant to be, and the students are getting the education that they need to get. That includes their technology kit. That includes the curriculum. Includes that the instructor is present in the classroom. They're not running late or something because of traffic in LA, stuff like that. And they're caught up with their kind of work, and also what else? The composition of studio time and lecture versus like practice, that is the right kind of combination. All of this, where there's like obviously because it's a big company, there's like a lot of different departments that might have separate goals, individual goals. At the same time, you're pulling together, of course, but it can get a little bit delicate when it comes to like working like departmentally with all the big kind of departments. But yeah, so it's the program manager is basically who is meant to navigate and direct this thing. So yeah, it's quite an undertaking. It's a pretty cool challenge, I found.
So towards like when you were the program manager, you weren't so much instructing and teaching, you were more like managing the school.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't teaching at all for like 5 years, I think. And then the very end, I started kind of popping back into the classroom. And actually that was something, so I really had missed. I didn't know how much I had been missing being in the classroom. I think I learned a lot from there. It's not just like, hey, I want to be like, just teach. It's more like you get a sense of what is going on in the heads of people who are really interested in learning. It's more like this. You find out a lot about what drives people to be there and that sort of stuff. So anyway, so I didn't do a lot of teaching for about 5 years, and then I had a couple of things that I started teaching, like it was like professional development, or I can't remember what was it, career development and stuff like that. And then I was like, oh, this is actually really good. I want to get back into this a little more. But yeah, it was mainly managing the team and doing performance reviews. And it's a very it's corporate America 100%. Or maybe you could say it's kind of like the intersection of a bit of education, but not like, or academia, like a little bit of academia, but really it's a lot of corporate America in there.
Yeah, fair enough. So you don't do that anymore. What changed? You just decided you didn't want to do it anymore, or?
Yeah. You know, it was a really important time, and I really learned a lot there, and it was very transformational for me. And yeah, it's a lot of learning that was there. But I started realizing that, you know, there's one thing, something odd about corporate America in a way where, like, let me give you this example. For instance, you always get like the latest, most recent like technology. Like, oh, here's a MacBook Pro M4 or whatever. And at one point, it's like there's no point in me having my personal laptop or personal shit because I have these provided by this company for me. But once you get a little bit kind of stuck. What is it? There's a term for this. I forget now. But never mind. The point is, at one point, about a couple of years ago, I was like, I'm not liking this. My laptop is like 10 years old, and I want to and I don't want to feel like what happens if this goes away, because I don't think long form education is going to be around like the same way vinyl is still around a little bit. So I'm not saying long form education is going to go extinct, but it might be just a much smaller kind of thing of what it used to be. And
there's been a big resurgence in vinyl, though.
It's very true.
It could be one of those things where, like, due to all this AI shit or whatever, long form education maybe dies down for a bit, but then in 10 years maybe people realize like, oh, actually that was sick, and like go back to it as like an old school way of doing things.
Yeah, totally. And I think that the vinyl resurgence is really interesting. I like. Look, today you can just hit play, and I don't know did you see the Apple Music the update came out like I think a few months ago that it mixes like a DJ kind of mixes your tracks.
Yeah, Spotify does this as well. It actually does a pretty good job.
Right. Yeah, it is kind of disturbingly good. It's just the kind of the warping algorithm that's a little janky in the Apple Music thing, but it does a really good job at mixing like a fairly decent DJ. And I think it just devalues when it's a continuous stream of any number of endless unlimited tracks. I think the idea when you put something on your vinyl, first it's a physical object. I think it's really nice to have something, and yeah, like you said, it's the cool kind of like old school. But also I think there's a little more to that, because I feel like, I feel like it's when you play a track on your vinyl. I don't have a vinyl player, like a turntable anymore, but I'm kind of considering actually. I think what's really good is you have that dedicated attention to that one track, and then once it finishes, it's like fucked. Like you have to like go there and interact with it and kind of put something else on. And I think in a world where there is just an endless stream of things, I think it's having attention on something is something that is scarce, and that's why it's kind of cool now, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I always think creative limitation is good, and with a vinyl, that creative limitation is like, what do I put on this thing? I can only put 40 minutes of music on it or something, so like which 40 do I pick? Whereas with a digital thing, you can release a million hours of music if you want. Doesn't matter. And also I think there is something to be said about like the ritual of like actually having to turn on this device, pull the thing out of the cover, put it on, go to the track you want to listen to, all this kind of stuff, versus just how simple it is to just press play on whatever the last track was playing on Apple Music or something. It definitely requires a different level of attention to go through that ritual and actually put the thing on, for sure.
Oh, 100%. That's a really good point about the limitation as well, I think. And so, yeah, to go back to the, like, actually to try to answer your question too, I started having the kind of ideas to do something that will allow me to be a little more like reliant on myself, rather than what if this thing isn't there anymore? Like, what do I do? Do I go to like a company, do like project manager or something, which like a random like tech company or something, which could be a thing or something, but I'm like, I'm not sure that I want to do this like a office job of like 8 to 5 type of thing. That is something I hadn't actually done before my time with LA Film School, and then all of a sudden there I was like 8 to 5 every day, and it's for like 8 years, and that's a it was a good time for that kind of corporate world. It learns a lot about team play, about all kinds of interpersonal skills and all kinds of stuff. But it was time for me to go back to building shit. I love building stuff in a way where I can literally be like at the control panel myself. And if I want to tweak something, it's not going to take me 2 years to be able to do that. For instance, at the school, if I said, I think music production studios should have synthesizers or nickname like electron or whatever kind of what are these like gear. A music production studio should have gear, right? Well, that from me saying that to the point where they started to appear in the studios, I think it was about a 2-year process of me having to bring in outside external experts claiming that that's actually what they think is the case. They support that idea as well. And then it kind of gets, it's like the process is really slow. You have to play a little bit of a game and stuff like that, be very strategic, and gives you a lot of good, I guess, skills maybe. But after a while, it's like, now I've done my skill development at strategy. Now let me try to do it in a way that I can actually make something happen if I want to today. So that's kind of what I was like, yeah. And, with AI kind of being and doing its thing, what it's doing, I'm not sure what the world is going to look in 5-10 years, but my hunch is kind of going back to that long form education thing. I'm not sure there is, being a music producer at that scale of like a Los Angeles Film School, when it's a huge company, it's not very, obviously all big companies have their challenge with being able to keep their finger on the pulse of everything and be able to kind of be quick enough to respond to all the changes in the world and the dynamics of the technology and the rapid development that's happening. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not even sure that music production as a skill is going to retain much of the transactional quality that it has today. Even if you're a music producer today, I think what you do is you do all kinds of stuff. It's like a multi-stream, like revenue stream kind of business. You do maybe sample packs as well. You do like sound design. You play some shows. You do maybe some teaching. I had a job right before this LA Film School thing, which was like a music library job. I was like a music producer / composer at this music library for a couple of years. And that was 8 to 5 composing, like production. And by the way, people, I feel like it's a glorified kind of thing, because I couldn't stand it after like a year. Like wake up and now I have to be like, and you have to deliver cues like 2 tracks a day. That was the aim, the goal.
Right, and they're always like specced out to be like, they always send you a reference, and they're basically like, we essentially want you to make this, but we can't use this because that would be illegal or cost too much money. So you got to basically make this, but not this. And yeah, I always found that kind of work to be kind of draining too. It's just like, well, why don't you just pay for the song that you want to use? Like, why do you want me to? I guess because it's cheaper to have somebody just make a thing that's basically that but not that, and then you have to like go back and forth with these people who know fucking nothing about music, who are like, it needs to be faster when they mean louder and all this kind of like,
dude, 100% is so spot on. Did you have much work in the music library kind of thing? Did you work for like these?
I did a bit of work in that scene. I was working for a while for this company called Tencent, which is some Chinese game company. They make all sorts of shit. And I did some of that, and I've done some like little one-offs here and there for, some games who have just reached out. Like I did one for Ubisoft last year or the year before or something. And yeah, I've done a little bit of that stuff. And at the rate I do it, which is like, I do it, maybe once a year at most. That's fine. I mean, it's always a fun little side project to do, but I don't think I would want to do that full time for sure. That would get draining. And
I think your experience might be a more enjoyable version, because but when they reach out to you specifically, I think they want your sound. Probably, I'm guessing something like
sometimes.
That.
I mean,
sometimes.
for the specific games and stuff that, like for the Ubisoft one, yeah, for sure. And for some of the Tencent stuff, yes, but most of the Tencent stuff that I did was like they wanted me to essentially make something that sounded like something that I would never make, but they just figured that I might have the skill to do it.
Oh yeah. I see. For me, what was a trip about this whole thing, and I don't know if this is something that you kind of relate in any way, that I come from like the scene of obviously like electronic bass, whatever, club festival kind of music, that sort of thing. And we always want to, I think, kind of freak people out, like do something with your music that people go, what was that? That's amazing, or something. That's kind of the end goal to an extent. And that's how I think my artistic approach has always been hardwired, trying to give people like a time where they're like, whoa, this is kind of cool or something. And so when I went to the work at the library, a lot of times my boss would be like, dude, you can't make this type of change in this track. And I'm like, no, this is sick. It's dope. I think it's really dope. And they're like, yeah, but that's not, no, this is going in a, what is it, like a cop show, investigative something. You don't want to pull attention to this extent into the music. It has to be like wallpaper. It has to be like kind of what you would imagine in a movie or in a show like that. But it's a delicate, I would say, balance between creating something that has almost no personality, but also kind of fits the vibe, and it's how to make music skillfully without allowing too much of a character to creep in. That was the hardest for me, and the fact that I'm having to make music like 8 hours a day, every day. So yeah, I guess this kind of point came from the thought that I think that what's going to happen to music production, no one knows, but my guess is as good as anyone else's. But I feel like already today it's kind of very diverse type of income streams kind of stacked up on each other rather than I just make music. So
some people get super lucky and just do their one thing, but yeah, I agree. I think for most people, it's like you have to be fairly multifaceted and have a fair amount of different income streams to make a living off music these days. Because music has just been devalued a lot. I mean, it started with digital music in general, just MP3s and Napster and stuff, and then now we've gotten to Spotify, and you can pay $10 a month for unlimited music, all of the music basically. And then now with AI shit, so basically like when somebody pays Spotify $10 a month, that goes into like a pool of funds that can then go out to people who get streams for music. And now there's like hundreds of thousands of AI tracks being uploaded there every day, and they get paid out the same as anything that you or I spent, months making. And so now somebody who spent 2 seconds making a thing on Suno gets paid the same amount as somebody who spent a month working on this piece of music for a stream. And so the general pool of funds there get diluted a lot. So now it's even more devalued. So yeah, I mean, you definitely have to have many income streams because music streaming is definitely not enough.
It's kind of similar.
Shows can be enough, but only if you're like pretty fucking big.
Yeah. I think it's similar to what happened to like the concept of a musician, like 30-ish something, 20, 30 years ago. Wait, what was it? Yeah, like that, like 25, 30 years ago. I think back then, I think it was much more common for someone to say to the question, what do you do? Well, I'm a guitar player, I'm a musician or something. And then, the technological democratization brought the studio in your laptop. And at the time, I was like, well, this one day might actually rival studios, maybe. You said that people laughed, like, no, it's never going to be there. Nah. And then took, 5 years or 10 years later, some things like, oh yeah, there's this guy who's not just a guitar player, but also they have a DAW, and then they're pretty proficient in that. So then they can kind of record, they can edit stuff, and then they can play, and they can kind of mix a little bit too. And all of a sudden it's like, you can't just be a musician anymore, because you're competing with all these other people who are musicians and mixing, arranging, and all kinds of types of engineering, recording, all of that work. And I think it's very similar with music production. It's when people say, oh yeah, I make a living out of music. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that, but I believe that. But what is that? How do you define making music? Because I don't think it's just making music. It's going to be a lot of collateral like stuff that is maybe you're going to be engineering for other people too, and it's also like what is making a living? What does that mean? Because making a living to me meant something very different 30 years ago in Hungary, Budapest, than it means to me today when I'm trying to support so that's kind of different. So I think, like I said, I feel like the transactional kind of quality of music production, I think in a like a economical sense, I think that's kind of changing a little bit. Exactly what you're saying about the Spotify thing as well. We were obsessed with speed, I think, a lot for a very long time, of like how fast can you make a track so that then your output is going to be that more profitable, because you have a lot of tracks that you can market and all kinds of stuff. But now it's like you mentioned Suno, 2 seconds exactly. Like someone can just hit generate and there's a track. And 2 years ago, people were like, same thing. Yeah, this you can still hear. It's not very good. But like, yeah, but it's the dumbest it will ever get. Like it's just going to get better tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. And now here we are, where most people can't tell the difference. And the speed game is done. There's no point trying to work fast, I think, in order to gain financially, because that's already kind of, I think, out the window. I think what people, if I don't want to like make it like paint a bleak picture, not to say that it's I have an accurate understanding. I have no idea if my understanding of this is accurate or not, but I'm just kind of saying that I think the values or what holds the value is in transformation, and I think speed isn't going to be as valuable as, for instance, who you are as a creator. People are going to be more interested, I think, in who you are. Your audience, the Mr. Bill audience, who care about Mr. Bill. Even if there's 50 other Mr. Bill clones that sound just like you and look just like you, that's not as interesting, because they're interested in the person and the person's new idea rather than just a replica of the same sound. So I think that the creative identity, your taste, and who you are what makes you you, I think that's what's going to be more valuable in 5 years. That would be my kind of hunch or 2 cents, I guess.
Yeah, it's like we're hanging on to the last thing that we have that AI doesn't, which is a personality. Whereas, AI has a personality too, but it's always generic and very watered down so that like it doesn't offend anybody and whatnot. So it's almost like the last thing we have that it doesn't have is like, yeah, slightly more unique personality of some kind. But I mean, at some point, I think it probably will get there as well. But I guess the other thing is like, AI can never create something that it doesn't have in its data set, whereas a human can obviously choose to do anything. But eventually we'll have RNN networks which are able to learn on their own and do all this stuff too. So, I mean, right now it's mostly everyone's just obsessed with LLMs, which is just showing a bunch of data and then having it turn into a glorified autocomplete function, which is impressive. But I think once we get into RNN, where like the models sort of go through this recursive loop of learning and getting punished if they do the wrong thing and all this kind of stuff, that it might then have its own sort of unique personality and be able to come up with stuff that it has never seen before. But even in the current state, people say like, oh, AI can't do anything that's not within its data set. It's like, yeah, but the data set is everything. So it can make a combination of everything, which to us is indistinguishable from something we've never seen before, probably. So yeah.
100%. I would even take it as I think a step further. I would say that AI is able to have personality indistinguishable to a human. It's already done that. I mean, when I'm saying personality, I don't mean is it possible for an AI or an algorithm to simulate what a personality is and the quirks of a personality and the characteristics sound like or look like in design or in a form of art. I think it's already able to do that very well, actually. But it's what I'm saying is more that if there are people in the world who care about your experience, Mr. Bill's experience specifically, and your person, then they don't care that there's another Mr. Bill that looks like Mr. Bill, because unless we are a commodity. If I'm a commodity and I just make music that for people to be hearing as they do some shopping in the background, yeah, no one cares who wrote that piece of music. But if someone is interested in following this creator because they're interested in that person and the person's story, there's no point, there's no interest if there are other people that have similar stories that are generated by an AI, because I care about the person. That's kind of what, I don't know if that makes sense, but I think AI is already capable of creating shit that feels like definitely has all kinds of personalities, you know? I think.
Yeah, there's already, I guess, a bunch of examples that I've heard about where we care more about like the legitimate thing than the synthetic thing. Like, for example, a point I've made a ton of times on the podcast is with like chess games, where we already have this engine called Stockfish that's better than any chess player on earth. Not even Magnus Carlsen can beat this thing. Yeah. Yet we still want to see Magnus Carlsen play another human to see the outcome of that game. Like we know that the machine is better, but we still care about like how good the human is. And same deal with diamonds. Like you can make these synthetic diamonds that are completely indistinguishable from real diamonds, but for some reason people pay more for real diamonds than fake diamonds because, I don't know, they just care about...
There's the story behind like totally. There might be like, this was mined in here, or like there's all kinds of thing that comes with it that is the story and the history and the context and the everything, because that's what's more valuable. When you can generate artifact at a push of a button, then what becomes valuable is not the fact that art exists. I think what makes you a great artist isn't the fact that you have, like, if I say ask ChatGPT to write me a novel that as if I wrote it and I published it, am I an author then? Obviously I'm not. Like, so I think what makes someone like a great artist is the struggle to get there. It's not the end result. It's not like I claim I have all these music pieces that are mine. Well, can I make another one? Do I have the capacity without the AI? Do I have the ability to get what's in my head and put it down into musical form or whatever? I think that's what's going to be more valuable. Again, I keep coming back to this, is the creative identity, because not to say that does your music sound like it has a character, and not necessarily that. It's the same thing. Like people are always going to be interested in someone that has something interesting to say. If you go to like any number of social, it's like hanging out with some peeps or whatever. If you have something interesting to say, I think, or interesting to share, I feel like that is still going to be valuable coming from a person rather than just generated by a machine. And we'll see how this thing plays out for sure.
Yeah, I guess one example of where, I would care more about the human perspective than the AI perspective would be, for example, I think it was yesterday or the day before or something, Philip Glass decided to cancel his show at the Trump Kennedy Center because it's now called the Trump Kennedy Center instead of just the Kennedy Center. And it was going to be like some premiere of some new big Philip Glass ensemble thing. And he was just like, no, I'm not doing it. So I asked ChatGPT, like, how much money would Philip Glass probably make from this show? And then it was like, oh, well, the Trump Kennedy Center has this many seats and tickets could be this much. And so it's probably like this much. And I find that interesting. It's definitely, I think, less interesting than it would be to ask Philip Glass himself, like, hey, why did you cancel this show? And like, what does this mean to you? For sure, I would find that more interesting than the AI explanation.
Dude, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. You said it so well, that if you care about a person, if you're interested in a person, then it's irrelevant that there might be 10, 100, 1,000 of others that look just like this person, but not the person. If you care about the person, there's that one person of that person. And I did not know. Philip Glass is, I'm familiar with someone who's like, what he's known for. Pretty awesome composer for sure. Yeah.
So what's next? What are you up to these days? You've done the music library and stuff. You've done the film school thing. You've done your own school in Hungary. You're working on an app now, yeah?
Yeah. I started working on this about a year ago, and that's before that's kind of what I said when we're talking about the LA film time days, where I was like, I need to get my own of everything. I need to be able to stand on my own at a time when I kind of start working on an exit strategy or something, and so. And do something that where I'm able to make the changes fast, as fast I would like. And so, I started putting this thing together, which is really not, it's part of it is an app. It's what it is it's built around, it's funny, it's actually very, no wonder that what we have been talking about so far here is really closely tied into what this thing that I'm working on is, because it's something that this is what has been on my mind for the last years of what's happening to music and technology and education and music production, all of that. And so this thing is called Soft Synced, and it's a structured learning system that's built around the basic idea that today information is pretty much free. And what's going to be hard and what's hard to come by, and I think what's needed today isn't more information, but it's a way to make sense of the information in a way that you can tell your story. So essentially, we need, I think, that's my opinion at least, that we need education that puts the person's personal and artistic development in focus and teaches everything along that line in a structured manner. So that's kind of like what is being taught. It's music production, so it is of course the topic, but it's music production education, or learning music production in a structured form, that in terms of like how this happens, it starts with a phone app. So it's kind of like taking the concepts introduced, or not, I'm not sure he introduced them, but James Clear, the Atomic Habits kind of dude, he is like talking about how habits form, and all you need is really just like set the bar really low, like go to the gym and work out for 1 minute or 2, like that's it, like the 2-minute rule. Like you don't have to, for the habit to build. A problem, a mistake that a lot of people make is I'm going to start reading now. I'm going to read a book every week, and it's like, I did it for a week, and then I fell off. And set the bar really low, because for the habit to form, that's what's required, not the result, and the result actually will come after. So, kind of built on this idea, the app component of this thing is. Are you familiar with the Duolingo, the app? It's like Duolingo for music production. So it's like bite-sized, kind of a little bit gamified micro-learning kind of nuggets. But really, it's just the entry and kind of orientation to the topics. So obviously you cannot learn music production in 5 minutes every day, and understand who you are as a creator 5 minutes every day. So what happens is once you finish a lesson on the app, you open a desktop app on your laptop. So that's kind of like now we bridged over to where most people make music on their computer, on their laptop. And when you open the app, you see kind of the same progress there. So we're in sync with the app. So the desktop app unlocks a whole kind of repository of additional pieces of information. For instance, let's say we talk about how compression works, for instance, in the app. So it kind of introduces to the concept, and it's meant to open something that's called the information gap. So that according to that theory, it's basically if you understand what you know and understand also something that you don't know and see the gap in between, then it creates this internal drive. That's kind of what we're talking about, that you want to find out how that shit works because you're just aware of the gap and you want to close the gap. And so the app kind of is meant to do that, to get you curious. And then you go to the desktop app where you see additional depth. So then you see all of the further explanation of like how compressors work and all of that, and then there's all kinds of assets and tools and like cheat sheets and whatnot that can be very handy. Some of them are like interactive that you can kind of play with and whatnot. And then there's always like an activity which we call your turn. So it's like when the user or the learner is sent off to do something, but those somethings are always kind of a little bit different or a little different than your average make a beat kind of thing. It's more like tries to teach creative intent, like and understanding who you are. Like for instance, you might be asked to create a beat, but then try to understand why you created that specific beat. Or you might be asked to find an adjective or 3 adjectives and say, I'm going to be making music that is going to be lining up to this type of, maybe not creative vision, but something that matches these adjectives. And then once you've done that, then we have a physical workbook, like actual like workbook that is it's like corresponding to the entire learning journey that you're on. And so it's always like, the exercise starts like open your workbook at like page 22 or something. And then you do that. And there's a bunch of these like reflection questions. And so what you do is you do a lot of observation of your own creative process and try to reflect. And once you're done with that, then you go back to the app and the whole kind of loop starts again. So you're kind of context switching from the app to the desktop, to the DAW, to the workbook. And it's something that is typically makes instructional designers in education kind of nervous when it comes to like context switching, because a lot of times it's done in a non-intentional, random fashion. And it is true that it creates a cognitive load for students. But the point is, when you do it strategically, that's actually how we learn. When you think about like an apprentice, for instance, or how actually skills are gained, it isn't just reading about stuff. The learning isn't just information coming to your head and done. It's situational. You will read about it, you will talk about it, you will work with it, and all kinds of different contexts are going to be adding to your learning experience. So that's kind of what this is trying to do. And once you're back in the app, you're able to continue with the next lesson and the next course and all of that. And also there's this community feature there where once you're back in the app, you have a prompt of like, hey, do you want to like leave an insight for this lesson? Anything that you kind of took away from this that you thought was interesting, or maybe you thought it wasn't interesting or anything. And then you can mark that, or you can switch that on to be publicly visible for others. So really the kind of point there is, it's kind of like a community learning situation where you complete a lesson, but you see all the other people reflecting or giving you insight, and you can see other people's interpretation and perspective of the same lesson. So it's kind of that recursive loop of different kind of technology going from the app, all this journey, and coming back to the app with the idea that it wants to help you understand what works for you, like how you work, what's your creative process, and what is the story that you're trying to tell, so that in the age of AI, when an AI can do exactly what you do, just much faster. And then what makes you different? And I think what makes you different is knowing what it is that you're trying to say. Like, who are you? What's your personality? That sort of stuff. So that's kind of the idea. I'm really excited for that. It's in beta right now. So I've come a long way. I started working on it a year ago. We have a small team of some software developers. Of course, I tried vibe coding and just found an old prototype. I can't remember what I used I found it on my phone for the app. And but you get to a point where you have to, I don't know, vibe coding just doesn't give you all the way. If you have a vision and you're specific and particular and all that, then. So anyway, I reached the limit with that, my abilities to try to use Claude and what's the other ones, like Cursor, yeah, like all those. And then there's like Replicate, I think, or something. There's a lot of really good stuff. But yes, and what I'm trying to say is, yeah, and then we have like a UI UX designer, graphic designer, and so now it's going to go live. I'm really hoping that it's going to be in February. So at the time of recording, with the end of January, we're still in beta, but we have a working kind of model of the entire loop, and it's super exciting, man. I can't wait to get it out of my head. It's been on my mind for the last, I would say it's been coming at least 5 years, but it's really everything that I learned from all of the school in Hungary, the music production, the touring, the LA Film School, and I'm going to be very interested what people make of it when it's in their hands.
Yeah, I agree that you can't just read something and learn about it, or you can't just do the thing and learn about it. You need to attack learning from all sorts of angles, for sure. You need to like see somebody else do it, and then you need to like, first of all, for me, the most important thing for learning is first understanding the problem that the information I'm reading is trying to solve. Because if I don't know that, then I'm just like, why am I reading this? Whereas if somebody comes to me with a problem, like, I don't know, for example, let's say in Ableton, if you put all of your kicks on the grid in audio and then later want to change that kick, that's going to be a problem because you have to hand replace every single audio clip, versus if you do it in MIDI, then you can just swap out the sample in the sampler and then they're all changed immediately. Like something like that, I need to know, like, okay, that's the problem that's trying to be solved, and then have the information like to solve it. Where if you just come to me and go like, all right, so you can drop a sample in a sampler like this, and let's say I know nothing about music production, I'm going to be like, yeah, but why? Like, what does that even do?
100%.
And so for me, that's really important. Yeah. But yeah, I agree.
I think it's important for everyone. I that's my hunch. It's important for a lot of people, that like the context of not just the instruction, but why are we doing what we're doing? What's the problem that we're trying to solve?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, yeah, I'm excited to see the app. I'd love to check it out when you're done with it. Are you writing the curriculum for like everything? Like you're writing the whole workbook, you're writing all of the courses, everything like this, or? Everything.
Yeah. It's interesting. The first course is like 8 lessons, it's called Why Learn Anything. And it's really kind of touching on a lot of the things that we talked about here today. Is like, what's the point of learning? Like, what are you trying to get out of this? Because, schools that charge you, like cost you like $100,000 for a degree, it's in their best interest to make sure that everyone understands that this is a career and you're going to make a living out of this. Parents don't want to fund $100,000, a hobby just for nothing. And same with manufacturers. I love my synths and everything, but I love playing with them. But it wouldn't be wise for them to say like, oh, this synth, I got the third wave, for instance, here. I love that synth. It's like $5,000, that synth. They can't say that this is just a really expensive hobby here, but it is, because you can do the same thing and more in Ableton or anywhere today on your laptop. But anyway, point I'm making is, it's Why Learn Anything. So there's a lot of like conceptual kind of orientation happening in the very first course, where we look at things like why discomfort, for instance, is essential for growth. Because that's another thing. Like I have run into a lot of this where people feel like, you know what, I don't feel comfortable right now here. And I'm like, good, that you shouldn't, because you're in an educational setting, and it's, by definition, it means that you have to leave your comfort zone and you have to feel uncomfortable and you have to get good at feeling bad in order to get somewhere. That's kind of like a Mark Manson kind of thing with his, I'm sure you're familiar with that book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck?
Yeah, I listened to like the first 20 minutes of it or something.
Yeah, I kind of liked the, I think there's some really good points in there. It's basically, you have to get, good at feeling discomfort, because discomfort is part of life. If trying to avoid it and run away from it isn't going to, that's not a good direction. Anyway, so once we're done with this kind of conceptual kind of side, we start at like audio basics of DAWs and sound and digital audio and in the box versus software, or in the box versus hardware and that sort of stuff. And then we go into like beat making, and then kind of there's like a progression of these in terms of like how advanced the topics are. And then once you get to a certain point, then you unlock an area of like a ton of courses that are that can be taken in any sort of order. So there is a structured kind of element to it, but there's also something where you get to be selecting what specific area you want to get more into. And once you're done with that, then you can also go to a higher level of structure, and that leads to another kind of repository of individual courses that can be taken in any kind of fashion. And I'm writing all the curriculum, which is it's a lot of work, but it's something that I kind of enjoy, because I really want to. It's like storytelling, especially with the app. It's fantastic how to like, because you have these animations and everything. You're literally telling a story, and it's much better than just being able to just write. That medium of writing is so much less. I don't know. It's just very exciting to see how better able you are to tell a story with this kind of system that I have. But it takes a very long time. And this entirely proprietary system, it's not that I just purchased a model and that allows me to input things. So you have to imagine, like when I create a new curriculum or something, or a new bit of course or lessons and stuff, I ideate and work a lot on what the app should look like, and then what the kind of deeper insight kind of thing would look like, what the assignment would look like, what the workbook would look like. And then inputting these in is kind of like working on an Excel spreadsheet. Like it's pretty complex, but it's rewarding, because I hope it's rewarding. We'll see what people make of it, but it's rewarding when you see it in your hand and it's working. It's really dope.
Yeah, I bet. Well, yeah, I'm excited to check it out. What are the what are the more advanced topics? Do you think this would be useful for somebody like me even, or you think it's mostly just for people who are like getting into wanting to make music but don't have any experience in it, or you think that it has a place for literally anyone at any point in their career?
I think that this is a very it has a very specific target audience. So it's not going to appeal to a lot of people who might regard this entire thing as like, well, wait, do I have to like journal about what? That's stupid. I want to make music or something. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like some people might not see the reason, the value in this. And so it definitely isn't for everyone. It's I'm trying to target those people who feel that they can complete a lot of instructions or courses or whatever, but they're not getting to a better understanding of who they are anyway. And so, but in terms of like how advanced and like, for instance, would this be something for you? I really want to find out. So I would love to get it in your hands as well. And I think that every school or educational kind of, school, let's say every school has to start at the basics, right? So this would be, I think, interesting probably for you, especially for like the first course that is more talking about what's happening in the industry today and AI and the role of a music producer, how that's shifting and all of that. But then after that, I think it would be way too easy for you, even though if you take into account the fact that this is looking at it from a different perspective. It's saying when you talk about sound, an assignment isn't solve this quiz or something. It's more like take some bits of music and try to understand like your favorite tunes right now. What is driving your interest in there? Like what is that you're responding to there? Is it anything to do with the sound or with the harmony or whatever? So it's doing a lot of like, what is your interest? Who are you? And then and I guess if you saw the value in that, then you might find it interesting. But for now, it's more like a core track, which is pretty basic beat making and stuff. And we do a lot of like we don't explain everything. So for instance, when I say here is a minor third, or not like a chord progression or something, I'm not going to be, all right, let me explain music theory from what is a note, from that starting point. We do a little bit of that, a very little bit of that, but after course 3, it's more like, if you realize that there's something here that you don't know, there's no point me creating another tutorial of music theory because there's an infinite number of that already available. So it's more like just the context and the how to, like when I think kind of similar to your videos, when you make a beat, what's your thought process when you're making the beat? You're not going to be going into all the basics of, oh yeah, by the way, this is a drum rack and the way it works is similar to an MPC. You're not going to go into all of that probably because you're just making the beat. And if someone wants to, they can pause the video and then do some research into, wait, what is Ableton? And so I think everyone should have that agency of being able to direct their own work or feed their own curiosity. We don't need another tutorial, I think. We have enough of that covered, of like basic instruction style. Let's just learn some music theory or audio. So there's a lot of that is intentionally missing, and it's more focused on conceptual or like the artistic, what is it? Like the creative process, I would say, and the application.
Right. Yeah, I think something like listening to music and figuring out what it is you like about it is a good exercise for anyone ever, no matter where they are in their career. And often when I see basic tutorials, like, I'll watch like somebody just setting up a drum rack or something dumb like this, I find I always learn something from those. Like maybe it's just somewhere they click on the screen that does some tiny little workflow thing that I wasn't aware of, or maybe, I always find I get something small out of anything, even if it's like a super basic thing. There's just like so many tiny little things to learn.
That's so true. And I even like I want to make it kind of clear that I don't want to shit on any of the tutorials that are out there, because it's the opposite. And you didn't imply any of that. I'm just kind of saying to make, you reminded me of making this clarification that when I say we don't need another tutorial is what I mean by that is because the ones that are out there are so good already that they're going to teach you so much of. I know I saw you had Andrew Wang, right, on your podcast. Like, oh my God, that dude's like some of his material on his YouTube channel and everything, and so your stuff. I mean, the world is, we have a lot of great instructors and people that can teach, and that you can go to with budgets and the entertainment value as well. So it's when it comes to like how this thing works, how a compressor works, I think it's already been done really, really well. That's not what I want to focus on. I want to focus on how to use this compressor in a way that it's going to support your creative intent. What is your creative intent? What are you trying to achieve? What makes you tick? And that's that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, sick. I'm excited to check out the app, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast. And yeah, it's great to catch up.
Dude, so good to catch up, man. I don't know, when was the last time we hung out? It was like, I think it was here in LA at some point, wasn't it?
No, I think we only ever met one time, which was in Melbourne like
Hell no, we hung out
20
here
years ago.
with Kevin and Funka Buddies, no?
Oh,
Didn't we?
true. If we did, that would have been 2016, so 10 years.
Yeah, that Melbourne, I still have some of the... I think I'm chewing your hair in one of the photos.
Yeah, actually, I
Not
do remember
sure
this.
why.
All right, man.
That was a
Thank
sick
you.
time. Thanks so much for having me, man. Super exciting to talk to you. Really good stuff. Thank you.